Have you ever heard of a company that pretended to have money it didn't? Imagine you have a piggy bank. Every time you get some money, you put it in that piggy bank, and you know exactly how much you have because you can count it. But what if someone told you they had a piggy bank with $1 billion in it only to find out later that the money was never really there? That's exactly what happened with a company called Wirecard, and it caused one of the biggest financial scandals in recent history. Wirecard was a company from Germany that dealt with online payments. Have you ever used a credit card to buy something on a website? Companies like Wirecard help make sure that money from your card goes to the store safely. At first, people thought Wirecard was really good at what it did. It was making lots of money, had thousands of employees, and became one of the most successful companies in Germany. Everyone wanted to invest in Wirecard because they thought it would keep growing and making lots of money. But things were not as they seem. How did the scandal begin? Wirecard claimed it had a lot of money in the bank. In fact, it said it had $1 billion stored away in the Philippines. But there was a huge problem: no one could actually find this money. Think about it. If you told your friends you had $100 in a piggy bank but couldn't show it to them, they might start to wonder if it's real. That's exactly what happened with Wirecard, except instead of $100, it was $1 billion. People started asking questions. Reporters and auditors, people who check if a company's money is real, wanted to know where the money was. Wirecard kept saying, "Don't worry, the money is there." But as more people looked into it, they realized that the money didn't actually exist. This was a huge shock because, for years, people had trusted Wirecard and invested their own money in the company. Why did Wirecard do this? Wirecard wanted people to believe it was very successful, so it could keep attracting investors and clients. If people thought Wirecard was making a lot of money, they'd want to invest, and the company would be worth even more. But when companies lie about their money, it's called fraud. Fraud is when someone tricks others to gain something, usually money or trust. Wirecard's leaders, like CEO Marcus Braun, made it look like the company was doing much better than it really was. They reported huge profits and showed off impressive numbers. But these numbers were fake, created to make people think the company was thriving. Who noticed the lies? Some reporters were suspicious. One newspaper, called the Financial Times, kept writing about strange things happening with Wirecard's money. They looked into Wirecard's reports and saw some numbers that didn't add up. Imagine if someone told you they got 100 pieces of candy for Halloween, but you saw them only visiting 5 houses. You'd wonder, how did they get so much candy? That's what the reporters at the Financial Times thought. But it wasn't easy. Wirecard was a big, powerful company, and they didn't like being questioned. They tried to stop the reporters from writing about them, but the reporters kept digging, and eventually, they found proof that something was very wrong. The truth comes out finally. The truth came out. Auditors who checked Wirecard's finances discovered that the $2 billion in the Philippines was just a story. The money simply wasn't there. Wirecard had been pretending to have this huge amount of money, but it was all a lie. This made investors furious, as many people had trusted the company with their own money. In the end, Wirecard went bankrupt, and many people lost a lot of money. Some of the company's leaders, including the CEO, were arrested for their role in the scandal. Others, like Kujan Marsalek, vanished and are still missing today. The Wirecard scandal became famous worldwide as a story of how things aren't always what they seem, even in the world of big business. Why does the Wirecard scandal matter? The Wirecard scandal is important because it reminds us to be careful about trusting companies just because they seem successful. It also shows how essential it is for businesses to be honest about their finances. Without honesty, companies can deceive people and cause huge problems. Wirecard's story became a lesson for everyone, from investors to regular people, about the dangers of blind trust and the importance of asking questions. In the next part, we'll look at how Wirecard went from a small company to one of the most famous businesses in Germany before its fall. We'll learn why people believed in it so strongly and what made Wirecard such a big name until the truth came crashing down. Have you ever wondered how a company goes from small to super famous? Once upon a time, Wirecard was just a small business in Germany. It started in 1999, when online shopping was new and people were just starting to buy things on the internet. The company had a simple goal: help people make safe payments online. As more people got comfortable shopping online, Wirecard grew along with the internet boom. In the early days, Wirecard focused on a unique market: online gambling and adult websites. These were businesses that had a hard time finding payment services willing to work with them because banks and payment providers were cautious about online activities. Wirecard stepped in and helped these companies process payments. Over time, this built Wirecard's reputation as a company that could handle complex transactions. Soon, more businesses started using Wirecard services, and as profits grew, Wirecard's rise to success as Wirecard gained more clients. It started attracting the attention of investors. Investors are people who put money into companies they believe will succeed because they expect to make a profit. By 2005, Wirecard was doing so well that it became listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange in Germany. This was a huge milestone. When a company is listed on the stock exchange, it can sell shares, small pieces of ownership, to the public, allowing it to raise even more money. Wirecard used this money to expand and buy other businesses that worked in online payments. One of its biggest purchases was a company that made prepaid credit cards. This allowed Wirecard to offer more services to more people, making it even more popular. Soon, Wirecard was handling transactions for airlines, stores, and big companies around the world. Why people trusted Wirecard? Wirecard looked like a company with endless potential. They had thousands of employees, lots of clients, and were growing faster every year. People saw Wirecard as a future star in the payment industry and believed it would one day be as famous as companies like PayPal or Visa. Even huge banks and investment firms, which normally do a lot of research before trusting a company, were excited to invest in Wirecard. But there was something else. Wirecard's numbers always looked amazing. Every year, Wirecard reported more profits, higher sales, and bigger successes. Imagine if your favorite sports team kept winning every game without fail. That's what Wirecard seemed like to investors. Everyone wanted to believe in this winning streak, so they kept investing and putting their money into the company. The warning signals as Wirecard became more famous, some people began to notice that things weren't adding up. The Financial Times, a well-known newspaper, started publishing articles that questioned how Wirecard made its money. They noticed that some of Wirecard's business partners were located in far-off places and didn't seem like real companies. For example, some businesses were based in countries with very loose rules, which made it easy for them to hide money or pretend to have more money than they did. Wirecard, however, kept denying that anything was wrong. They said the Financial Times was just trying to ruin their reputation. They even sued the newspaper for publishing bad things about them. For a while, this worked. Most people believed Wirecard's side of the story and kept investing. The beginning of the end. But the questions didn't stop. Some investors began to wonder, if Wirecard is doing so well, why do they seem so defensive? Meanwhile, auditors, people who check a company's finances, started noticing strange things in Wirecard's financial reports. Wirecard claimed to have tons of money stored in foreign bank accounts, but no one could seem to find these accounts or see the money. It was as if Wirecard was claiming to have a huge pot of gold but wouldn't let anyone look inside. This is where the scandal started to unravel. People started to ask tougher questions, and Wirecard's leaders could no longer keep up the act. It was becoming clear that Wirecard wasn't the golden company everyone thought it was. In the next part, we'll explore how Wirecard's secrets began to leak out and what happened when people finally learned the truth about its missing billions. Have you ever heard of something so big it just vanished? Wirecard was a company that claimed to be worth billions of dollars. But as more people looked into its finances, something strange appeared. Wirecard's leaders had been saying they had over $2 billion stored in bank accounts overseas. This money was supposedly held in places like the Philippines, where they said some of their biggest clients were based. But when auditors, who are like money detectives, tried to confirm the money was there, they ran into trouble. They asked the banks in the Philippines if Wirecard really had accounts with billions of dollars in them. The banks searched and searched, but found nothing. There were no accounts with Wirecard's name, no billions of dollars. It was as if the money had never existed at all. The world starts watching. This discovery made big news. All over the world, people were shocked. How could a company that had become so famous and successful not have the money it said it had? Some people thought it was just a mistake, a misunderstanding that would soon be cleared up. But as the days passed, it became clear that this was no simple error. The missing billions were nowhere to be found, and Wirecard couldn't explain where the money was. Wirecard CEO, Marcus Braun, tried to calm everyone down. He said Wirecard was still a strong company and that everything would be okay. But by now, people were losing trust in Wirecard's leaders. Braun's reassurances couldn't make the missing billions suddenly appear. A twist in the story, the chief operating officer, things took an even stranger turn. Jan Marsalek, Wirecard's chief operating officer, was the person in charge of the company's international operations. He was supposed to know all about Wirecard's foreign clients and the money in those overseas accounts. When the scandal broke, everyone expected Marsalek to answer questions and explain where the money had gone. But instead of answering questions, Marsalek suddenly disappeared. It was like something out of a mystery movie. Marsalek vanished without a trace, leaving investigators even more puzzled. Some rumors claimed he had fled to Russia, others said he was hiding somewhere in Asia. No one could find him, and Marsalek was now one of the world's most wanted men.
The confession meanwhile, Marcus Brown finally admitted that Wirecard might have lied about the missing money. He said that the $2 billion might not exist after all. This was a huge shock to everyone who had believed in Wirecard, from small investors to major banks. Brown was soon arrested for fraud, which means lying or cheating to gain money. Wirecard's leaders, who had once been respected and trusted, were now seen as suspects in one of the biggest financial scandals of the century. The company's reputation was destroyed, and investors realized they had lost billions of dollars. People began to ask, how could something like this happen? How did no one notice until now? In the next part, we'll uncover how Wirecard was able to trick so many people for so long and how its leaders managed to hide the truth for years.
How did Wirecard keep the lie going for so long without anyone catching on? Wirecard's success wasn't built on real profits. It was built on secrets, lies, and clever tricks. To make the company look more valuable than it was, Wirecard's leaders used something called fake revenue. This means they pretended the company was earning a lot more money than it actually was. So, how did they make fake revenue without getting caught? Fake companies. Fake profits. Wirecard claimed it had clients all over the world, especially in countries where it was hard to track down the details. These clients were supposedly paying Wirecard huge amounts for its services. But in reality, many of these clients didn't exist. Wirecard created fake companies that it claimed were real customers. These fake companies were like puppets, making it look like Wirecard was doing big business when, in fact, there was no real money being exchanged. Each year, Wirecard would add these fake profits to its records, and the company's value would go up and up. Investors saw the numbers and thought, wow, Wirecard is really growing fast. But they had no idea that the profits weren't real. The trick of fake bank accounts. Another clever trick Wirecard used was creating fake bank accounts. When people wanted to check if Wirecard actually had billions of dollars, they'd ask for proof from the banks where Wirecard claimed the money was stored. Wirecard's leaders found a way to fake documents that looked like official bank records. These documents showed big numbers that didn't actually exist. To make things even more confusing, Wirecard's leaders said the money was in countries like the Philippines, where it would be harder for outsiders to check. When auditors and investigators wanted to confirm if the money was really there, they had to rely on what Wirecard told them. This trick kept people in the dark for a long time, allowing Wirecard to keep pretending it was financially strong. Fooling the auditors. Auditors are experts who check companies' finances to make sure everything is in order, but Wirecard was able to fool even them. How? By keeping most of its operations in places that auditors couldn't easily reach or verify. This tactic is called using third-party partners, where Wirecard claimed that other companies were handling the money on its behalf. When auditors tried to verify the money, Wirecard would say things like, "Our partner in another country is taking care of that," making it hard for auditors to directly check the details. For years, this trick worked, and the auditors ended up giving Wirecard's finances a green light, thinking everything was fine. In the next part, we'll explore how investigators finally started piecing the puzzle together and discovering the truth behind Wirecard's clever cover-up. What happens when a secret starts slipping out? For years, some people more suspicious. It was like a person yelling louder to cover up a lie somehow. It just didn't feel right. In part 6, we'll see how things continue to unravel for Wirecard as more people joined the search for the truth, and the situation became impossible to hide. Can you imagine billions of dollars just vanishing? How does money just disappear without a trace? As more people started looking closely at Wirecard, they discovered something so shocking that it felt like it came right out of a detective story. Over $1 billion was missing from the company's ACO. And now, $1 billion isn't just a small amount of money you could lose in the couch cushions or misplace in an old wallet. It's a huge amount, enough to buy tens of thousands of cars, thousands of houses, or even an entire small country's worth of supplies. Yet, somehow, no one could find it. Wirecard insisted this money was safe into banks in the Philippines. They claimed it was just sitting there, waiting to be used, like a pile of gold in a secret vault. But when people checked with these banks, they got an even stranger answer. The banks in the Philippines said they had never even heard of Wirecard and that they were not holding any money for them. This was more than surprising, it was almost unbelievable. How could a company as big as Wirecard claim to have billions of dollars in accounts that didn't even exist? The big question, where did the money go? Imagine if your friend told you they had a huge piggy bank full of coins, but every time you asked to see it, they made up an excuse. They might say, "Oh, I left it at my cousin's house," or "It's actually in a secret hiding spot." That's what Wirecard was doing. They kept saying the money was safe in those Philippine banks, but whenever anyone tried to actually check, they got excuses and confusion. By now, everyone, investors, reporters, and even government officials, wanted answers. People were demanding to know, is this just a big mistake? Or has Wirecard been lying to us all along? Auditors joined the hunt. Wirecard was under a lot of pressure to prove that the money really existed. To show that everything was okay, they hired a group of financial detectives called auditors. Auditors are professionals who carefully check if a company's money and finances are in order, kind of like teachers grading a test or parents checking homework. The auditors go through every record, every account, and every document to make sure nothing is missing or incorrect. Wirecard hoped that if the auditors could confirm the money was there, everyone would relax, and they could put all the bad rumors to rest. But as soon as the auditors started investigating, they ran into problems. The auditors couldn't find the $2 billion no matter how hard they looked. Every document they checked seemed to lead to a dead end, and every person they asked didn't have a straight answer. It was like looking for a treasure chest that didn't exist at all. Wirecard's repeated claim that the money is just hard to find wasn't working anymore. Following the money trail, the auditors tried to follow what's called a money trail, which is a way of tracking every movement of money to see where it's gone. They checked bank records, payment transfers, and even emails, trying to understand where the money could have disappeared. But every time they thought they were getting close, they hit another roadblock. The banks in the Philippines kept saying they didn't have the money and had never worked with Wirecard. So, if the money wasn't in the Philippines, where was it? Did it ever even exist? More and more, it was starting to look like the money might have been a trick all along. But who would pull off such a trick? And why? A shocking admission in June 2020, Wirecard made a startling announcement. The $2 billion might never have existed at all. They admitted that they had no idea where the money was and that it might be completely fake. This was a huge bombshell. People were stunned, confused, and angry. How could such a big, well-known company have hidden something like this for so long? Investors who had put their savings into Wirecard felt betrayed. Employees, who thought they worked for a successful company, were devastated. Everyone wanted to know who was behind this massive deception and how they had managed to pull it off. This wasn't just a small error or an honest mistake. This was something much bigger. It seemed like Wirecard might have been lying for years, tricking everyone into thinking they were richer and more successful than they really were. But who had come up with the scheme? And how had they convinced everyone, from banks to investors, to believe them? In Part 7, we'll dive deeper into the aftermath of this shocking discovery, following the reactions of the people involved and seeing how the Wirecard scandal becomes even bigger as more secrets are uncovered. The search for answers was just beginning, and everyone was eager to find out how this mysterious story would end. Who was behind this massive lie? Was it just a few people? Or was the entire company in on the plan? The discovery that the missing $1 billion might never have existed sent shockwaves through the business world. Everyone from investors to employees to government officials wanted to know who masterminded this deception, and how did they manage to fool everyone for so long? At the center of the scandal was Markus Braun, the CEO of Wirecard, and Jan Marsalek, the company's chief operating officer. Braun was known for his quiet, serious demeanor, while Marsalek was more outgoing, often described as daring and mysterious. Together, they had managed to convince the world that Wirecard was a hugely successful company. But as the investigation unfolded, people began to wonder, how much did they know, and were they responsible for the missing billions? The resignation and arrest of Markus Braun when the news broke that the money might not exist. Markus Braun immediately faced pressure from all sides. People demanded accountability, and investors wanted to see consequences for whoever was responsible. Braun eventually resigned from his position as CEO, but the story didn't end there. Soon after, German authorities arrested him on charges of fraud and embezzlement. He was accused of helping to cover up the missing billions and lying to investors. For a CEO of such a prominent company to be arrested was almost unheard of. It was a shocking moment that made everyone realize just how serious the scandal was. But Braun's arrest left one big question unanswered. What role did Jan Marsalek play in all of this? Jan Marsalek, the man of mysterious investigators, looked closer at Marsalek. They discovered that he was even more mysterious than they had thought. Marsalek seemed to lead a life straight out of a spy novel. He traveled to unusual places, kept a low profile, and even hinted that he had connections to secret government organizations. In fact, some people thought he might have been involved in intelligence work, gathering information and making deals behind the scenes. When authorities tried to question Marsalek, they realized he had disappeared. He seemed to have vanished without a trace, leaving behind only rumors and unanswered questions. People began to wonder, had Marsalek planned his escape in advance? And if so, where could he be hiding?
The international search, the search for Marsalek, quickly became an international affair. Investigators from multiple countries started working together to try to find him. Reports claimed he might have fled to Russia or another country that would protect him from extradition, the legal process of returning a fugitive to the country where they are wanted. Marsalek's sudden disappearance only added to the mystery. How could a top executive of a major company disappear so easily? Some people speculated that he had powerful connections helping him stay hidden, while others thought he might be using fake passports and aliases. The whole situation was like something out of a movie, and the world was captivated by the twists and turns of the unfolding story. A scandal beyond Wirecard. As authorities continued their investigation, it became clear that the Wirecard scandal was more than just a case of missing money. It revealed serious problems in how the company had been run, with layers of deceit stretching back years. Some employees said they had been pressured to keep quiet or look the other way, while others claimed they had no idea anything was wrong. The scandal also raised questions about the oversight of big companies. How could such a massive fraud go undetected for so long? Financial experts and regulators faced criticism for failing to catch the warning signs. Some people blamed weak regulations, while others argued that Wirecard's leaders had been especially skilled at hiding their actions. In Part 8, we'll explore how the fallout from Wirecard's collapse affected not just the company itself, but the entire financial industry. We'll see how governments and regulators around the world reacted and whether the scandal led to any changes in how companies are monitored to prevent fraud.
What happens when a giant falls? Can the world ever trust big companies again? When Wirecard declared insolvency, it was like watching a skyscraper collapse in slow motion. The impact was felt far and wide, not just for the company itself, but for the entire financial industry. Investors lost billions, employees lost their jobs, and people around the world began to question the safety and integrity of the financial systems they relied on. The fallout was immense, and the world was left wondering how such a colossal failure could happen. The impact on investors. Imagine being an investor who put your hard-earned money into Wirecard, believing it was a thriving company with endless potential. When the news broke that $1 billion was missing, many investors were left in shock. Some had invested their life savings, hoping for a secure future, only to see everything vanish overnight. The anger and frustration were palpable. People felt betrayed, not only by the company but by the system that had allowed this to happen. Many investors joined forces to demand accountability. They wanted answers about how Wirecard was able to deceive so many for so long. Lawsuits began to pile up against the company, and shareholders sought to recover their losses. But with the company in insolvency, it was unclear how much, if anything, they would be able to get back. The the strain on employees while investors were reeling from the news. Employees of Wirecard faced their own set of challenges. Many were blindsided by the scandal and had no idea that their jobs were at risk. As the company crumbled, layoffs became inevitable. Employees were left feeling uncertain about their futures, worried about finding new jobs in a difficult job market. Some employees spoke out, expressing their shock and dismay over the company's actions. They claimed they had been kept in the dark, and many were disappointed to learn about the extent of the fraud. The atmosphere in the company shifted dramatically, from one of pride in working for a cutting-edge technology firm to a sense of shame and confusion. Regulatory scrutiny. As the dust began to settle, regulators worldwide turned their attention to Wirecard. Governments and financial authorities realized they had to take action to restore trust in the financial system. Many countries began reviewing their regulations to see how such a major fraud could slip through the cracks. In Germany, where Wirecard was headquartered, there was significant pressure on regulatory bodies like the BaFin Federal Financial Supervisory Authority. Critics pointed fingers at BaFin for failing to investigate Wirecard thoroughly, even when red flags were raised. This scrutiny led to a broader examination of how financial oversight was conducted in Germany and beyond.
The call for reforms, the Wirecard scandal, became a rallying cry for those demanding stronger regulations in the financial sector. People began to argue for better monitoring of companies, stricter reporting requirements, and more transparency. The public was tired of seeing companies take advantage of loopholes while ordinary investors suffered the consequences. In response to the outcry, some governments proposed new laws aimed at improving financial oversight. They aimed to prevent future scandals by creating systems that could catch signs of fraud more effectively. The hope was that by learning from the mistakes of the past, regulators could ensure that companies like Wirecard would never be allowed to deceive the public again. A changing financial landscape, the fallout from Wirecard didn't just affect the company and its employees. It changed the entire financial landscape. Investors became more cautious and people started asking tough questions before putting their money into any company. This shift led to a greater focus on corporate governance, ethics, and accountability. As new regulations began to take shape, the financial world slowly started to regain some of its lost confidence. However, the scars from the Wirecard scandal would take time to heal. It served as a stark reminder of how quickly things could go wrong and how essential it was to hold companies accountable for their actions. In Part 9, we'll delve into the ongoing investigations into Wirecard's executives, the lessons learned from the scandal, and what it means for the future of corporate accountability. We'll explore how this story has influenced people's views on trust in business and finance.
Who will pay the price for the Wirecard scandal? Is justice really served when a company falls? After the shocking collapse of Wirecard, investigations began almost immediately. The world wanted to know how this could have happened and who was responsible. With billions of dollars missing and many lives affected, the stakes were high. The question on everyone's mind was, who would be held accountable for this massive fraud? The hunt for truth as soon as Wirecard declared insolvency, various authorities stepped in to investigate. In Germany, the police and public prosecutors launched a major inquiry to uncover the truth behind the scandal. They wanted to know how such a large company could commit fraud without being detected for so long. The investigation focused on the company's executives, particularly its former CEO, Markus Braun, who had been the face of Wirecard's success. Braun was arrested in July 2020, just days after the fraud was revealed. He faced serious charges, including fraud, embezzlement, and market manipulation. The investigators worked tirelessly to gather evidence, reviewing documents, emails, and financial records to piece together the puzzle of how Wirecard had deceived so many. The role of the board and executive investigation also looked closely at the roles played by other executives and board members at Wirecard. Several high-ranking officials were accused of being complicit in the fraud or at least turning a blind eye to the warning signs. Jan Marsalek, the company's former coup, became a particularly notorious figure. He was accused of masterminding the fraudulent activities and went on the run after the scandal broke. Authorities learned that Marsalek had been involved in questionable activities and had connections to various shadowy figures around the world. His disappearance fueled speculation and conspiracy theories, with many wondering where he had gone and whether he would ever be caught. The search for missing funds. Investigations continued. Another crucial aspect was finding the missing $2 billion. Investigators were determined to track down where the money had gone and whether it could be recovered. They followed leads that took them to various countries, looking into financial transactions and uncovering a web of deceit. Despite their efforts, recovering the missing funds proved to be incredibly challenging. Many suspected that the money had been moved around so cleverly that it was nearly impossible to trace. The failure to recover the money only added to the frustration of investors and the public, as it became clear that the financial damage from Wirecard's actions would be extensive.
Legal consequences. As the investigations unfolded, the legal consequences for those involved began to mount. Brown and other executives faced a long and complicated legal battle. Prosecutors were determined to make an example of Wirecard to deter future frauds in the business world. Trials were set to take place, and many were eager to see how the judicial system would handle such a high-profile case. The legal proceedings drew significant media attention, with many following every development closely. People were eager to see if justice would be served and whether those responsible for the scandal would face real consequences for their actions. The trials also highlighted the complexities of corporate fraud, revealing how difficult it could be to pinpoint individual responsibility in such large organizations. The broader impact on corporate governance. The Wirecard scandal not only affected those directly involved but also sent shockwaves through the entire corporate world. It sparked discussions about corporate governance and the need for stronger ethical standards in business. Investors and the public began to demand more transparency and accountability from companies, pushing for changes that would prevent future frauds. Many experts argued that stronger regulations were essential to restore trust in the financial system. They advocated for measures that would require companies to provide more detailed financial disclosures and undergo regular audits. The hope was that by implementing these changes, companies would be held to higher standards and that the risk of fraud would be significantly reduced. Lessons learned. The investigations and legal battles that followed Wirecard's collapse revealed important lessons for investors, regulators, and companies alike. It became clear that thorough oversight and due diligence were essential for preventing fraud. Investors were reminded to be vigilant and to question things that seemed too good to be true. Regulators recognized the importance of keeping a close eye on companies, especially those that were growing rapidly. The scandal served as a wake-up call, prompting many to rethink their approach to oversight and regulation in the financial industry. In Part 10, we'll explore the long-term effects of the Wirecard scandal, how it has changed the financial landscape, and what the future may hold for corporate accountability and trust in business. We'll also reflect on how this story serves as a cautionary tale for all businesses, large and small. Can anything good come from a scandal as big as Wirecard? What lessons can we learn to avoid this happening again? The Wirecard scandal left a profound impact on the world of finance and business. As the dust settled from the investigations and trials, people began to reflect on the larger implications of what had transpired. This final part of our story will explore the aftermath of the scandal, the lessons learned, and how the financial landscape has changed in its wake. A cautionary tale. Wirecard serves as a cautionary tale for businesses around the world. It highlights the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of maintaining ethical practices in the pursuit of success. The scandal showed that even companies that appear to be thriving can have dark secrets lurking beneath the surface. As a result, many businesses started to reassess their internal controls and practices to ensure that they were operating transparently and honestly. Executives, managers, and employees alike were reminded that they play a crucial role in maintaining a company's integrity. Creating a culture of accountability and ethical behavior became a priority for many organizations. Companies started implementing stronger ethics training programs to help employees understand the importance of honesty and integrity in the workplace. Changes in regulation. In response to the Wirecard scandal, regulatory bodies around the world began to reevaluate their oversight of financial markets. Governments recognized the need for stricter regulations to protect investors and ensure the integrity of financial reporting. Many countries proposed reforms aimed at increasing transparency and accountability in corporate governance. One significant change was the call for more rigorous auditing processes. Regulatory agencies pushed for independent audits to be conducted more frequently and for auditors to be more vigilant in their assessments. The hope was that by strengthening these measures, future frauds could be detected earlier, preventing large-scale collapses like Wirecard. Rebuilding trust, the fallout from Wirecard created a wave of distrust in the financial system. Investors, consumers, and the public at large became wary of corporations and their practices. Rebuilding trust became a crucial goal for both businesses and regulatory agencies. Companies recognized that transparency and open communication with their stakeholders were vital in restoring confidence. Many businesses began to engage more with their investors, sharing information about their operations, financial health, and governance practices. This openness was aimed at reassuring stakeholders that they were committed to ethical practices and responsible management. The role of technology. The Wirecard scandal also prompted discussions about the role of technology in the finance sector. Many experts argued that technology could be leveraged to enhance transparency and reduce the risk of fraud. Companies started investing in advanced software and tools to monitor their financial transactions and detect any anomalies. Additionally, the rise of blockchain technology gained attention as a potential solution for increasing transparency in financial reporting. Blockchain can create immutable records of transactions, making it more challenging for fraud to occur without detection. Many hoped that by embracing innovative technologies, the finance industry could create a more secure and trustworthy environment. The impact on startups. While Wirecard was a large corporation, the implications of the scandal extended to startups and smaller businesses as well. Many investors became more cautious about where they placed their money. They began to conduct more thorough due diligence on companies before investing, looking closely at their financial practices and leadership. This increased scrutiny created challenges for startups seeking funding, but it also encouraged them to adopt better practices from the outset. Many startups recognized the importance of establishing a solid foundation based on transparency and ethical behavior, which could help them build trust with investors and customers. Final thoughts. A hopeful future. The Wirecard scandal was a significant event that changed the landscape of the financial industry. It exposed vulnerabilities and highlighted the need for stronger governance, accountability, and transparency. While the scandal was a dark chapter, it also prompted positive changes and reflections across the business world. As we look to the future, the lessons learned from Wirecard will continue to shape how companies operate. Businesses will strive to maintain integrity and foster a culture of accountability, while regulators will push for stricter oversight to protect the interests of investors and consumers. In the end, the Wirecard saga reminds us of the importance of vigilance and ethical behavior in the business world. It serves as a reminder that trust is a valuable currency, one that can take years to build and moments to shatter. By learning from past mistakes, we can pave the way for a brighter, more trustworthy future in finance. And so, as we close this chapter on the Wirecard scandal, we leave you with a crucial question: how can we all contribute to a more honest and transparent business environment? The answer lies in our collective commitment to uphold integrity, promote ethical practices, and demand accountability in every aspect of the financial world. If you find this video useful, please share it to your friends and family. Subscribe to our channel to support us. See you next time.